A 5-figure salary to be a personal sleep aid for a port city billionaire. The only rule. You can suit the young master, but you can't sleep with him. I got the job because I'm practical, not ambitious, and I love money. The day I started, the young master decided to make my life hell. First, he got me drunk. Then, with his silk robe hanging half open, he dared me to violate my professional code of conduct and even took pictures as proof. Furious, I used his belt to tie his hands and feet and gave him a taste of his own medicine. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. If I was losing my job, he wasn't getting any sleep tonight. I stared at the line of beautiful women in front of me, dumbfounded. The cushy, $20,000 a month job my friend told me about. The waiting area for the interview looked like a casting call for The Bachelor. Everyone was dressed like a starlet, a stunning variety of every shape and size. And unlike me, they were all busy touching up their makeup. The Sterlings, Port City's most elite family, were hiring an army of personal sleep aides. They were famously generous, hiring 7 people at once for a one-night trial each. Even if you didn't make the final cut, you'd get a week's pay. But first, you had to get an interview. I was a psychology major, though I hadn't done anything remotely related to psych since graduation. But $20,000 would solve a lot of my problems. My sister could focus on her college applications instead of working 3 jobs during her break. My grandmother's nursing home fees would be covered, and she wouldn't have to live with my aunt, enduring her constant side-eye. Even if I didn't pass the trial, I'd still walk away with several $1,000s. But this pageant of dazzling beauties. Hey, are you all here for the sleep aid position? I asked a few of the women, afraid I'd ended up in the wrong place. One of them looked me up and down, her eyes filled with disdain when she saw my plain outfit. What else? Heh, they call it a sleep aid, but who knows what it really is. I heard from someone in their circle that the Sterling heir used to throw crazy raggers when he was studying abroad. I also heard Ira Sterling plays rough. He can't get tired unless he's worn someone out completely. No wonder it's 1 person per night. Who could handle more than that? You didn't really think they'd pay 20 grand just for bedtime stories, did you? Get real. I shivered. So, it wasn't a respectable job after all. Well, looks like another wasted trip. I decided to eat my way through the fancy pastries in the waiting area to make back the cost of my Uber ride to the hills. Just as I was stuffed and ready to sneak out, someone called my name. Next, Rachel. I let out a small burp as I walked through the door. The beautiful assistant leading me shot me a look before bowing to the person inside. Ma'am, the candidate you asked for is here. The hall was palatial, with a massive impressionist oil painting on the wall. In the center of the sofa sat a graceful, elegant woman. Her skin was so flawless, pampered into perfection by a fortune, that it was impossible to guess her real age. She flipped through my written test, her expression growing more and more satisfied. Are these your real thoughts? She asked, looking up to study me. I had been so eager to leave that I'd scribbled down whatever, completely forgetting my answers. So I just nodded. You're hired. People who love money are easy to communicate with. You're exactly who I'm looking for. Mrs. Sterling made the decision on the spot. I was the only person hired that day. All because I was unabashedly in it for the money and was, by far, the most unambitiously dressed person there. The butler told me to start tonight. The young master hasn't slept in 3 days. Why can't your young master sleep? I asked cautiously. The butler stopped abruptly. You don't need to know that. And please, do not ask him. As he showed me the layout of the mansion, he laid out the rules, ending with a warning. Miss Rachel, please maintain strict professional boundaries. You should know what you should and shouldn't do. You can suit the young master, but you can't sleep with him. The young master has already thrown out several groups of girls with ulterior motives. If you get kicked out, don't expect the Sterlings to show any mercy. Good luck. Iris Sterling's room was at the very end of the 3rd floor, a place so dark that even the moonlight couldn't reach it. It felt unnervingly gloomy. Rumor had it that Iris, the meticulously groomed heir to the Sterling fortune, had been ruined by his stepmother. Years ago, a car accident had instantly killed Iris's mother and their driver. Iris, who was in the same car, barely survived. It took him over half a year of recovery before he could even get out of bed. In that short time, his father had already remarried, and his new stepmother had moved into his mother's old room. The son who survived was a completely different person. The once charming, brilliant young man became dark, withdrawn, and prone to violent mood swings. He also developed a strange condition: he couldn't fall asleep after dark. The sleep aides they'd hired before were either unprofessional or incompetent. None of them had succeeded. After getting the offer, I'd immediately dived into the Sterling family gossip on my phone. I had no idea what was true and what was fabricated. Whatever. I was here now, so I'd see it through. I took a deep breath and knocked on the massive wooden door. $20,000, here I come. Come in. His voice was cold and heavy. Mr. Sterling, good evening. A single sliver of light escaped through the floor-to-ceiling windows, revealing a stunning night view of the city. Only a few dim sleep lamps were on, their flickering light casting moving shadows and a faint, sweet scent through the air. The room was enormous, its deep, bottomless darkness threatening to swallow a person whole. A tall, lean young man stood by the window, a glass of ice water in his hand, his aura distant and unapproachable. He must have just showered. The ends of his hair were still damp, soaking the collar of his robe. The silk fabric outlined a perfect physique, its dark, ornate pattern making the skin on his neck, wrists, and ankles look starkly white. That broad-shouldered, narrow-waisted V-shape. And he was dressed so indecently, leaving nothing to the imagination. No wonder the other girls had gotten ideas. I cleared my throat twice to make my presence known. Just you tonight? The young man turned and glanced at me. His face, which had a hint of mixed heritage, was illuminated by the moonlight. He had deep-set eyes, and his gaze was cold. Whoa, buddy, you usually have group sessions? Mr. Sterling, are you ready to rest now? It was my first time doing this, and I honestly had no idea where to begin. Iris reached out and pulled the curtains shut, blocking out the last trace of moonlight before walking toward the massive bed. I scanned the room. There wasn't a single chair I could move to the bedside. Was I supposed to sit on his bed to soothe him to sleep? That didn't seem appropriate. Stand by his bed? That would feel like giving a work report. He'd never fall asleep. Luckily, a soft, long-haired rug circled the bed. I plopped down onto it. From my bag, I pulled out the book I'd prepared, Peppa Pig. Iris leaned back against the pillows, his eyes half closed. When he saw what I was doing, a few veins popped on his forehead. Don't be mad, sir, let me explain. Heh, my nephew listens to this every night. Knocks him out in 5 minutes. He sneered. How old is your nephew? I mumbled, 3. I started reading Peppa Pig, and as I read, my mind began to drift. Crap. It was morning. I wiped the drool from my mouth. The bed was empty, with only the imprint of where I'd been slumped against it. On my first day, I fell asleep before my boss. I'm so fired. I thought I was about to be fired, and I was ecstatic. 1 day's work for a week's pay. I was thrilled. But instead, the butler told me that the young master was quite pleased with me and wanted me to continue my efforts tonight. Pleased? With Peppa Pig? I felt a little guilty taking this money. The second night, I tried a new approach. I asked the butler for some lotus seeds, longan, and lily bulbs and made a small bowl of calming dessert soup. Iris took a reluctant sip and commented, too sweet. I'd only made 1 bowl, so thinking he didn't want it, I snatched it back and tried it myself. It's fine. I only used half a rock sugar cube. He stared at his empty hand, then glared at the bowl in mine, looking annoyed. And when he got annoyed, he refused to sleep. Sigh. The third night, I warmed up some milk for him, lit some lavender incense, and started telling him gossip about my boss. That's right, being a sleep aide was just my side gig. I had a 9 to 8 corporate drone job during the day. Iris skipped his usual ice water and held the warm milk I'd prepared, listening quietly with his head tilted. He had long eyelashes, which made him look incredibly devoted when he focused on someone. If the gossip I was telling wasn't so outrageous, would have thought he was listening to a symphony. You said he gets handsy with you all? Iris suddenly interrupted. Just a slap on the butt or a pat on the shoulder as he walks by. It was disgusting, but the younger girls didn't dare say anything. He frowned, a flicker of emotion in his eyes. That night, I was animated, and he was captivated. Sleep? Forget it. The fourth night, I found a long, hypnotic movie and dragged him to the mansion's home theater to watch it. I chugged 3 espresso shots as bitter as medicine beforehand to make sure I wouldn't doze off before my client did. But when I woke up, my world had ended. Not only had I fallen asleep, but I'd fallen asleep on Iris. And not only had I leaned on him, but I'd also drooled all over his shoulder. I'll wash your shirt. I'm so sorry. I shot up, apologizing profusely. He slowly got up, rubbing the shoulder I'd been using as a pillow all night. His long fingers began to unbutton his shirt. I immediately turned my back. Isn't it a bit early for this? A soft shirt was draped over my head, and a large hand patted my hair. Hand wash only. The 5th night, I convinced the long-limbed Iris to do hot yoga with me. My technique was so bad I nearly snapped him in half. If it hadn't been his leg, he probably would have chased me down and beaten me up. The 6th night, I had him take a floral-scented herbal bath, then told him to lie face down on the bed. As I dripped essential oil onto his beautifully defined back muscles, I felt Iris flinch. I warmed my palms and, following a video tutorial, clumsily started a sleep-inducing massage. But for some reason, the muscles under my hands grew tighter and tighter the more I worked on them. Everywhere I touched, he tensed up. The lean muscle under my hands grew hotter, and a thin layer of sweat formed. His face was buried in the pillow, but the tips of his ears were ridiculously red. I whispered, "Sir, are you running a fever?" The next thing I knew, I was being hauled out of the room by my collar. Then came the sound of the shower running. TSK, this guy. Not only was he hard to put to sleep, but he was a germaphobe. I had washed my hands thoroughly before I started the massage. On the 7th night, before evening even fell, Mrs. Sterling summoned me for questioning. She was surprised I'd lasted 6 days, but she wasn't calling me in for a pep talk. It was an ultimatum. These past few days, Iris still hasn't been able to sleep at night. And I heard you almost broke his leg? I forced a smile. Not broken, not at all. Tonight will be the night. If you don't succeed tonight, you don't need to come back next week. Tonight, it was do or die. So that evening, I came to see Iris with a bottle of dry red wine. He was wearing the same silk robe from the first time we met. The color was different, though, a deep crimson. The fabric clung to his body, highlighting the clear definition of his muscles. A belt was tied loosely at his waist, his chest partially visible through the deep V-neck. What is he planning, dressing like that? I looked away, poured 2 glasses of wine, and handed one to him. Mr. Sterling, thank you for putting up with all my antics these past few days. We had tried all sorts of sleep remedies, and they had all failed. He took the glass but didn't let go of my hand. His palm enveloped my cold fingers. Do you want me to drink this? He asked, staring thoughtfully at the wine clinging to the glass. Get him drunk, and he'll sleep. I refuse to believe I can't drink you under the table. I nodded. He suddenly tightened his grip, pulling my hand toward him. Using my hand to steady the glass, he downed it in one go. I was still stunned when he locked his eyes on my lips and suddenly leaned in. My lips were pried open by a soft, warm tongue. My jaw was seized and tilted upward. A rich, fragrant wine exploded between our lips and tongues as the sweet liquid was fed into my mouth. Startled, I choked and pushed him away. The crimson liquid stained both of us. I struggled to get up, but Iris's eyes darkened, and he grabbed my chin again, forcing another half glass of wine into me. His lips were glistening and wet, and the heat in his eyes was scorching. My mind went buzz. An unfamiliar heat ignited in my heart, spreading from where he touched me to every inch of my body. Iris's personality was unpredictable, but his body was a masterpiece. From the tips of his hair to his ankles, he was exactly my type. By the time I came to my senses, I had already pushed Iris down into the pillows. I seized control, my mind consumed by one bold thought. Make him cry. Iris lay on his back, the corners of his eyes flushed red, his expression dark, his breathing ragged. His robe was half off, the collar wide open, his pale chest stained with red. I gripped his neck, my hand tracing a path down his collarbone, which I had been admiring for days. Mr. Sterling, are you feeling sleepy yet? He let out a deep laugh, his voice raspy. What do you think? As he spoke, he grabbed my knee and pulled me into what he considered the correct position. I gave a faint smile and leaned in, intending to kiss his bobbing Adam's apple. Click. A faint sound cut through the night. I paused, realizing something was wrong. The next second, the world spun. Iris had thrown me off the bed. He wrapped me in the sheets, bundling my clothes that had come off during the struggle, and tossed the whole package into the bathroom. You're not coming back tomorrow. Iris's voice was cold and hard through the misty glass door. With these photos, that woman will never let you set foot in this house again. Photos? A shiver went down my spine. I remembered Iris's inexplicably forward and ambiguous behavior. What a perfect honey trap. Mrs. Sterling's warning from my first day flashed through my mind. Anyone who dares to climb into Iris's bed won't get a single penny. If these photos got out, wouldn't my 7 days of hard work be for nothing? My head cleared instantly. I pressed myself against the door, begging pitifully. Mr. Sterling, I was wrong. You can file a complaint against me, but can you please open the door first? No response. I continued pleading, I was out of line just now. I shouldn't have been so handsy with my boss. The shadow outside the door shifted, as if he were hesitating. I just want to apologize to you in person. The door opened. Iris stood with his back to me, his voice laced with anger. Are you dressed? I took a deep breath and walked up behind him step by step. Why get dressed? It's not like they'll stay on for long. Then I kicked out with all my might. Right at the spot I had almost broken a few days before. Caught completely off guard, he dropped to his knees. I seized the opportunity, snatched his belt, and in a few quick motions, tied his hands and feet. Finally, I bit down hard on his trembling Adam's apple. If I'm going down, I'm taking you with me. If I was losing my job, he wasn't getting any sleep tonight. Get off. You got it. I obliged, shifting downward. Hiss, don't move. The young man's voice was terrifyingly hoarse, laced with gritted teeth. He tells me to get off, and when I actually get off, he changes his mind. So high maintenance. Iris's hands were tied behind his back, his ankles bound together, with the other end of the belt secured to the bedpost. He was hunched over, his dark red robe slipped down to his elbows, his hair damp with sweat as he endured the pain. I checked the spot where I'd kicked him. It wasn't even red or swollen. Why was he in so much agony? Get out. You want me to get out? After all my tough talk? That would be a waste. We haven't settled the score yet. But still, could a kick to the leg really hurt this much? Iris's eyes were squeezed shut, his breathing heavy. His eyelids were flushed, and his lips were bleeding. The Adam's apple one had bitten was bobbing under his thin skin. A broken grunt escaped his lips, as if he were desperately trying to suppress something. The sight made me blush, my mouth suddenly dry. This couldn't be another, more advanced, form of his honey trap, could it? I jumped off the bed and, using a few life hacks I'd learned from watching videos, located and disabled all the hidden cameras in the room. I pulled out the memory cards and tossed them next to Iris's face. Now you have no proof. I was feeling smug when I heard the man muffle a laugh. Are you an idiot? Ever heard of the cloud? Right now, he was the one tied up, and I was the one in control, yet I still felt a frustrating sense of being completely outplayed. In for a penny, in for a pound. I found a silk eye mask Iris used for daytime naps in the nightstand and, catching him off guard, slipped it over his eyes. The dark green mask molded to the sharp contours of his face. A high-bridged nose, strong brow bone. A taut jawline that radiated a dangerous sex appeal, his Adam's apple sliding with every breath. Rachel. The darkness made him instantly tense, his voice trembling. Oh, so the young master does know my name. I provocatively scratched the lion's chin. After days of being called hey, you, and get over here, I was more than a little annoyed. My fingertips traced a path down his burning face. So, do you know how to spell my name? The muscles under my hand tensed abruptly. I poured the rest of the dry red wine into a glass and dipped my fingertips in the crimson liquid. Then, on his sweat-slicked abs, I began to write with a vengeance. A few days ago, for the sake of his sleep, I went out of my way to learn massage techniques. But after just a few minutes, the young master threw me out and ran to take a shower, as if my touch had contaminated him. You thought my hands were dirty, didn't you? I scolded him as I wrote. Well, now I'm going to use my dirty hands to write my name on you, letter by letter. I'm naturally cold-blooded. My hands and feet are always freezing. Wherever my pen touched, his skin flushed red. In the end, the letters blurred as sweat and wine merged into a red patch that looked like an allergic reaction. Iris was completely speechless, left with nothing but hot, ragged breaths. His fists were clenched behind his back, his knuckles white. Some long-suppressed emotion was about to break free. Looking at the thoroughly bullied young master, my brain felt like it was about to short-circuit. In my daze, the wine glass tilted, and the remaining liquid spilled all over Iris. The red wine flowed down his chest, over his six-pack, along his V-lines. It disappeared into his dark red robe. The sweet, boozy scent exploded in the air. My heart pounded. Staring at the wine drenching his body, a terrible thought flashed through my mind. I wanted to lean down and lick him clean. No, no, no. Rachel. Lust is a deadly sin. Iris looked extremely uncomfortable. After shouting my name, he fell silent. If it weren't for his increasingly rapid breathing, would have thought he'd passed out. He was curled up like a fully drawn bow, every muscle in his body pulled taut. I gently tried to turn him over, but he desperately twisted away, as if trying to hide something. My gaze dropped to the massive object he was trying so hard to conceal, then back to the bottle of red wine. Iris. Was the wine drugged? The realization hit me, and I let out a sharp cry. Iris smirked coldly. You didn't know? How the hell would I know? So that's why he asked, do you want me to drink this? He thought I was the one who drugged it. If I knew, do you think I would have let you kiss me for that long? I remembered how he had held my chin, feeding me the wine while kissing me. He was trying to drag me down with him. What a malicious, evil capitalist. I didn't know there was something in the wine. Iris raised an eyebrow. Right. I should have known from the way you didn't even know where to sit. Hey. Now he's mocking me. Then do you know who drugged it? Iris seemed to know everything but refused to say a word. I was the one who brought the dry red. I'd even splurged 99 on it at the supermarket, no discount. But those drugs are supposedly expensive. A single pill must cost more than my entire bottle of wine. The empty wine glass rolled off the bed. The glasses were prepared by the butler. The butler had no reason to harm his young master. Which means he must have been trying to harm me. But would they really go to such lengths, hurting their own to take down an enemy, just to mess with a lowly worker like me? Weren't they afraid the drug would be too strong and I'd actually do something to their precious young master? And here I thought you were sharper than you look, Iris scoffed. I overestimated your ambition. I was furious. Calling me not smart was one thing, but saying I had no ambition? I'm lustful and greedy. How am I not ambitious? With that, I pulled him closer, ignoring the red marks the restraints had left on him. Since we've cleared up the misunderstanding and I wasn't trying to harm you, can we just keep tonight's events between us? And my pay? No. And no. You. Fine. So you won't yield to either soft or hard tactics. Then I'll just have to be harder. If you don't pay me, I'll go to Mrs. Sterling. If she doesn't pay, I'll go to the Port City tabloids and expose you all. I threatened. Ha. Make sure you contact a few of them. How could such cold words come from his 98.6-degree lips? As I was debating my next move, I heard a knock on the door. Iris, it's me. The voice was languid and alluring. I heard noises from your room. Is everything all right? It was Mrs. Sterling, Iris's stepmother, Serena. Just moments ago, I was shamelessly threatening to go to his stepmother. Now that she was actually here, I chickened out. If she saw this room, this bed, her stepson, in this state, I probably wouldn't get paid, and I'd end up getting sued. Iris's face changed instantly. He tore off the remaining restraints and the eye mask. Then he wrapped me and my things in a bedsheet and stuffed the entire bundle into the large wardrobe. Don't make a sound, he commanded coldly before closing the door. He even grabbed a hideous down jacket on his way out. I've been a law-abiding citizen for over 20 years, and this was my first time hiding in a closet like a spy. It was tense, exciting, and terrifying. I held my breath and peered through the crack. I saw Iris quickly straighten his robe, tighten the belt, pull on the down jacket, and zip it all the way up to his chin. He was completely sealed up. Why are you wearing so much? Are you not feeling well? The woman asked in a sweet, concerned voice. I'm fine. Do you need something? Iris only opened the door a crack, blocking the entrance, clearly not intending to let her in. Iris, I'm so worried about you. Her voice was gentle and full of concern. First hiring a sleep aide, now visiting him in the middle of the night. For a stepmother, she was really going above and beyond. Just as I was being moved by this display of familial affection, a flash of white caught my eye. Serena had forced her way into the room. Iris recoiled as if he'd touched something disgusting. I quickly covered my mouth. The scene unfolding before me was staggering. The elegant and poised Mrs. Sterling from the daytime was knocking on her stepson's door in the middle of the night wearing a lace negligee. Her chest was half exposed, her curled hair was loose, and her cheeks were flushed. Her well-maintained skin glowed softly in the moonlight, and the look she gave Iris was tender and suggestive, like a young girl in love. She raised her hand to fix Iris's collar, but he dodged her, completely oblivious to her advances. I'm fine, you should go back. My dad will be home soon. Your dad? Who knows where he's messing around? And the girl? Serena ignored her stepson's attempt to show her the door and walked further into the room. She glanced at the messy bed. You wear an eye mask at night? A cold sweat broke out on my back. She roamed the room, her eyes scanning everything, getting closer and closer to the wardrobe. You don't have to look. I sent her away, Iris said curtly, blocking Serena's path. Didn't you like her a lot? Iris sneered. Whether I like her or not, didn't you see it all on the monitor? I shuddered. That brat was toying with me again. So the camera was installed by Serena, and she had been watching my every move for the past few days. My paycheck was probably gone for good. I was just worried about your safety, Serena said, stepping closer, her eyes glued to her stepson's body, almost sizzling. Are you worried she'd climb into my bed, or worried that I'd be the one to slap? The sharp sound of a slap echoed through the room. A clear handprint quickly appeared on Iris's cheek. The next second, Serena, as if she had a split personality, said with heartache. I'm sorry, Iris. I was just anxious. She tried to touch his face, but he turned his head to avoid her. None of those girls are sincere. They're all after your money. Only I. Well, thank you so much for your concern, Mother, Iris sneered. Don't call me Mother. I'm not your mother. Serena suddenly flew into a rage, cornering Iris by the bed. You used to call me Ms. Sue. Iris scoffed. So you do remember you were once my tutor. Listening to this conversation, I felt the air in the closet thinning. My brain couldn't keep up with the amount of information. I was completely bewildered. No wonder Serena was so sensitive about the way the interviewees were dressed and chose me, the plainest one. No wonder she repeatedly stressed that I could soothe him but not sleep with him, that I must not have any improper thoughts about Iris. No wonder Iris said that if Serena found those photos, would never be allowed back. Serena was in love with her stepson? If so, why did she have him drink the drugged wine? The butler gave me the tainted glass. It was obvious who was behind it. She had been watching the monitor, waiting for the right moment to knock. She wanted to use me to set a trap for Iris, then take my place and... A deep chill ran through me. Holy crap. Can someone please erase this memory from my brain? After accidentally stumbling upon a billionaire family's dark secret, was I going to get out of here alive? I don't know how much time had passed before Iris finally remembered I was still in the closet. Still not coming out. My legs are numb. The culprit himself had already taken off that hideous jacket and was leaning against the closet door. Half joking, half threatening, he said, "You know our family's biggest secret now. Rachel, what am I going to do with you?" I stared at the handprint on his face, and a thought popped into my head. Why didn't you dodge when she hit you? He had effortlessly broken free from his bonds, yet he took that slap without flinching. Iris didn't answer. He bent down. He slid one arm under my knees and the other behind my back, lifting me out of the closet. I looked up at his silent profile and couldn't help my curiosity. Or do you have something she's holding over you? Iris looked down at me. Are you sure you want to know more? I sucked in a sharp breath. On second thought, no. I quickly scrambled out of his arms. A few rays of moonlight streamed into the room. The young man's bangs fell across his face, hiding his expression. The great young master of the Sterling family, monitored in his own room, drugged, slapped, and suffering from a strange inability to sleep. He was actually quite pitiful. For old time's sake, I pulled him over to the bed, found the first aid kit in the room, and gently applied some anti-swelling ointment to his face with a cotton swab. Otherwise, his face would be a mess tomorrow. Iris's gaze froze, and he let me tend to him quietly. Tonight's sleep mission was a complete failure. Iris still let me go. I don't know how he dealt with Serena, but a driver was there to pick me up early in the morning. Mansions were dotted among the lush green hills, overlooking the city below. As I looked back at the slowly blurring estate, a wave of fear finally washed over me. I was lucky to get off the mountain in one piece. Of course, I didn't dare to dream of getting paid. Suddenly, my foot kicked a bag. I opened it. Inside was a neat stack of $100 bills and a copy of Peppa Pig. After that day, I never went near the exclusive neighborhood in the hills again. When friends asked, I just dodged the question. I didn't know what happened to Iris, whether he ever got to sleep, or if he kept hiring sleep aids. Late at night, I would sometimes think about that chaotic evening. I'd remember his lean waist, stained by me under the moonlight, and his lips, tasting of wine, as he leaned in. And that ambiguous kiss. And I would immediately rush to the bathroom and splash cold water on my face. Rachel. You can't even dream about that man. I wasn't so proud as to refuse the money Iris gave me. With that $20,000, my life became a little easier. At least I wasn't in a rush to find another part-time job. For years, with a young sister and an elderly grandmother to support, I never had a moment's rest. The day my sister's high school entrance exam results came out, my parents died in an accident. My sister, Wendy, was only 12 at the time. I had just turned 18, and faced with such a sudden tragedy, I was completely lost. Before the funeral was even over, my relatives started arguing right there at the wake. Over the house and the money. My uncles wanted to sell the house where my sister, grandmother, and I were living. They said that since my parents were gone, my sister would be at a boarding school, and I'd be at college. It wasn't convenient for Grandma to live alone. Their plan was to sell the house and take Grandma in. My grandmother vehemently objected. If you sell the house, where will my 2 granddaughters live? Wendy is only 12. Do you want them to have nowhere to go during their school breaks? Ma, they can stay in the dorms. Besides, Rachel is an adult this year. She can earn her own money. And they're both girls. They'll get married sooner or later. Exactly. Are we supposed to let them hold on to the house just to give it away to some outsider when they marry? My aunts and uncles chattered on, adamant that the house had to be sold. Ma. The 3 of us brothers all pitched in for this house. Now that my oldest brother is gone, we can't just leave it to 2 girls. At most, after we sell the house, we'll set aside a share for Rachel and Wendy. My son is starting private school next year, and that costs a fortune. You can't play favorites. You people. My grandmother was so angry she almost fainted. I looked at the circle of so-called blood relatives, my heart a desolate wasteland. Sell it. But you have to promise to take good care of Grandma. I held Wendy's hand, knelt before my parents' memorial tablets, and made a vow. Mom, Dad, I will take good care of Wendy, and Grandma too. I gave up my acceptance to a top East Coast school and enrolled in a university closer to my sister. I started working right after graduation instead of going to grad school. To work in my field, a bachelor's degree was barely scratching the surface. But I didn't have time. I had to take whatever job I could find that paid the bills, even if I wasn't interested in it. The one comfort was that Wendy was always a top student, well-behaved and understanding. She would even secretly take on summer jobs during her break and never compared herself to others or complained about not having spending money. This year, she was about to start college. I was determined to give my sister a more carefree life. Wendy didn't have to be so responsible. I, Rachel, had already endured all the hardships for her. After setting aside money for my sister's college fund and prepaying for Grandma's nursing home, there wasn't much left of the $20,000. I was still a corporate drone, working from 9 to 8. I endured my boss's creepy hands and endless overtime, silently grinding my teeth. My degree was from a regular university, and my major didn't give me any advantage. I knew I didn't have the luxury of quitting without another job lined up. I secretly sent out resumes while dealing with all sorts of unreasonable demands. Before I could find a new job, my boss showed his true colors again. The company had been trying to land a big project for a long time without success. My boss found out about the intermediary, a Mr. Quinn, and his particular tastes. While I was away on a business trip, he used a client meeting as an excuse to take 2 pretty interns from my team to a dinner party. The moment my plane landed, I got a call for help from one of the girls. She was hiding in the bathroom, whispering on the phone. Don't cry. Send me the address. I dragged my suitcase and rushed straight to the Orchid District. It was a place of endless nightlife, a world of hedonism and extravagance where money flowed like water. I, dusty from travel, was completely out of place in this lavish setting. I navigated through a crowd of glamorous figures and ambiguous couples and finally found my interns in a VIP room. I pushed the door open. The thumping music hit me like a wall. Mr. Quinn, with his potbelly and yellow teeth, was pressuring one of the girls to drink. I threw off my jacket, slid over, and stood in front of them. Smiling and toasting everyone, I subtly signaled for the 2 of them to make a run for the bathroom. I drank glass after glass, stalling for time. After waiting a while, my boss realized the 2 pretty girls weren't coming back and his face darkened. Whatever. I was about to slip away myself when a hand pushed me back down onto the sofa. Rachel, that's not very nice. Mr. Quinn gave a sleazy grin. You sent the little sisters away. You think you can run off too? Everyone in the room, except me, was one of them. I weighed my options. To escape, I had to get out of this room first. Not at all, Mr. Quinn. They're still students and have a curfew. Why don't we move the party somewhere else? Mr. Quinn's smile turned predatory. Finish this glass first. I don't know how many glasses of alcohol I was forced to drink, but a sharp pain started to cramp my stomach. I forced myself to stay upright and followed them out of the room. The lights above were spinning. My legs felt weak and wobbly, and I staggered as I walked. Looks like Miss Rachel is drunk. Let me help you. A greasy hand wrapped around my waist. So disgusting. I tried to shake him off and stumbled forward a few steps, crashing into a solid chest. A faint scent of mint instantly filled my senses. A group of impeccably dressed, handsome men and beautiful women were walking by. The man in the lead had an arrogant, world-weary air about him. His gaze fell on the fat hand gripping my shoulder. It had been a while. Iris Sterling's expression was even darker than before. Iris, are you okay? A girl in a princess dress rushed forward anxiously. Iris's eyes lingered on me for a second before quickly moving away. He turned and spoke softly to the girl. They whispered for a moment, and the girl giggled. On one side was me, reeking of alcohol and corporate exhaustion. On the other was the glamorous young elite of Port City. My face burned with embarrassment. I wished the ground would swallow me whole. Mr. Quinn and his greasy cronies saw that Iris's group was clearly not to be messed with and tried to pull me away. I stared at Iris's retreating figure and opened my mouth. In the end, I looked away. The flicker of hope that had risen within me slowly died down. It was ultimately swallowed by the tide, just like the silent cry stuck in my throat. What perfume are you wearing, Miss Rachel? It smells so good. Mr. Quinn was sniffing me aggressively, and his foul breath was about to make me pass out. The alcohol was hitting me hard, and my limbs were gradually losing control. I dug my nails into my palms, forcing myself to stay awake. Suddenly, everything went black. All the lights in the hallway went out. We were plunged into darkness. Someone suddenly screamed. My hand. Ah! Then I heard the sound of fists hitting flesh, bodies slamming against walls, and a trash can toppling over. The sounds blended into a chaotic symphony. Someone grabbed my hand. On instinct, I raised my leg to kick. But the person seemed to have anticipated it, blocking my knee. Let's go. A familiar voice reached my ears, and my eyes instantly welled up. All my resistance melted away. I let the person in the darkness lead me into the light. How did you get yourself into such a mess? Did you spend that $20,000 that fast? Why haven't you quit that dead-end job yet? TSK. Who was nagging me? My head was spinning, my body ached, and I was curled up on the leather seat in the back of a car. Be quiet, I'm so tired. Where do you live? Someone helped me sit up and fastened my seatbelt. Home. Blurry images flashed through my mind. I don't have one, I shook my head. What did you say? I said I leaned close to the person's ear and said with a self-deprecating laugh. I said I don't have a home anymore. I buried my hot forehead into a cool shoulder. The scent of mint filled my senses, chasing away the disgusting smell from before. It's been gone for a long time. When I woke up in a hotel room, I was still in yesterday's clothes. There was no one else in the room. Except for a carton of hot milk on the table. The front desk told me the room had been paid for. My phone had dozens of missed calls. The two interns had followed my instructions and called my boss's wife as soon as they escaped. By the time she rushed over, all she found was a drunken, beaten-up mess of a husband. They couldn't find me and were afraid I had been picked up by some creep, so they had called me dozens of times. Finally, someone answered, or they would have called the police. The person who answered yesterday said he was your boyfriend, but we didn't believe him. We made him video call us so we could see you were safe. Rachel. Your boyfriend is so hot. And he looks kind of familiar. The two girls chattered on, giving me a headache. Boyfriend? Leave it to the young master to just make things up on the spot. He was probably too lazy to explain and just gave himself a convenient title. I tilted my head back and chugged the milk. It was cold, but it was sweet. 2 days later, a 25-page PowerPoint presentation started circulating within the industry. It meticulously detailed our boss's embezzlement of company funds, his backroom deals with Mr. Quinn, and his exchanges of money for sex. Some god-tier vigilante had been planning this for a long time. Every piece of evidence was laid out with clear logic, irrefutable and damning, a single fatal blow. Of course, I wasn't going to miss this opportunity to kick him while he was down. I teamed up with other colleagues who had been harassed, and we submitted a signed report, adding details of his misconduct that weren't in the PowerPoint. That afternoon, my boss was taken in for questioning. The company's other partner, Frank, returned from overseas and immediately issued a statement distancing himself from the situation, pledging full cooperation with the investigation. That evening, Frank, whom I had never met, asked to see me alone. He apologized in person, saying he had been too trusting and had been a hands-off investor in the company. He assured me that the company would not only support the victims in seeking justice but also provide psychological counseling, legal aid, and financial compensation. From the moment the scandal broke to its resolution, it took less than a week. The new boss was decisive and efficient, quickly cleaning up the company's mess. In the end, I never submitted the resignation letter I had written. A month later, Frank took me to meet a new business partner. I heard that this new partner was a rising star in the industry, young and brilliant. His company was staffed with tech geniuses, and in just a few short years, they had become a major player that everyone was scrambling to work with. Frank, banking on the fact that the guy was a junior he'd befriended while studying abroad, seemed relaxed. The elevator doors opened, and a tall figure stood silhouetted against the light. My foot, which had just stepped out of the elevator, froze in place. I had seen him in a robe, in casual clothes, and even in no clothes at all. But this was the first time I'd seen him in a suit. Long legs and tailored trousers, the collar of his shirt casually unbuttoned. His sleeves were rolled up, revealing defined forearms. His gaze was steady, and every move he made exuded the calm authority of someone in power. I had to admit, Iris Sterling looked just as good with his clothes on. Rachel, come say hello. Miss Rachel, a pleasure to meet you. Iris Sterling, Phoenix Group. His tone was polite, distant. After we finished the official business, the other attendees dispersed, leaving just the three of us in the conference room. You little brat. Frank slapped Iris on the shoulder. What was that pleasure to meet you act? Who was it that called me a dozen times in the middle of the night, ignoring the time difference, just to? I'll give you another 2% off. Iris cut Frank off abruptly, his eyes meeting my questioning gaze for a moment before darting away. All right. Frank's eyes darted back and forth between me and Iris. I get it. His gossipy look made my ears burn. I tried to make an escape, but Frank said, "Oh, Rachel, I have something else to do. Could you please give Mr. Sterling a ride back? Doesn't Mr. Sterling have a car? He didn't drive. It's out of gas." They both said at the same time. Fine. I drove the out-of-gas Cullinan to take Iris back. The young master in the passenger seat announced that he didn't want to go home. Then where would you like to go, Mr. Sterling? I asked sweetly, trying to coax him. He used to be my meal ticket, now he was my company's meal ticket. Just drive, he said, then closed his eyes to rest. The billionaire heir to the Sterling fortune just fell asleep next to me, completely unguarded. He had dark circles under his eyes and his eyes were bloodshot. I wondered how long it had been since he'd had a good night's sleep. I suddenly remembered Frank secretly telling me that Iris had been instrumental in taking down Mr. Quinn and the other partner so quickly. But ultimately, we were from different worlds, our paths only briefly crossing. Iris was woken up by the smell of food. Night had fallen. The car was surrounded by the bustling sounds of a night market. Street food stalls lined the road, with sizzling woks and the fragrant aroma of stir-fry filling the air. "Mr. Sterling, care to join me for a meal?" Whether it was for getting me out of that jam at the Orchid District or for the PowerPoint that took down Quinn, they might have been small things to Iris. But I still owed him. Iris, still groggy from his nap, seemed a bit dazed. He let me lead him through the winding streets, deep into the food market. "Two, please." "This is what you're treating me to?" Iris frowned. I knew the young master wasn't used to gritty places, so I took out the wet wipes I'd prepared and wiped down his chair and table. Iris's frown deepened. "Are you a germaphobe?" I said, "Aren't you?" Iris said, "Me? Since when?" He casually pulled up a stool and sat down. I was speechless. "If you're not a germaphobe, why did you run to the shower after I gave you that massage the other night? Weren't you grossed out by my hands?" Iris, who was sipping his tea, nearly choked. "You were outside the door the whole time?" "Of course. I heard everything." The shower had been running non-stop that night. He must have scrubbed off 2 layers of skin. Iris's ears turned red. "What did you hear?" "I heard you showering for a long time. By the way, my hands weren't dirty. I washed them right before the massage." He was silent for a long time before finally mumbling. "It wasn't that your hands were dirty. It was my mind." "What did you say?" "Let's order first." "Oh." I had just picked up the colorful menu when Iris fluently reeled off a list of dishes. I was stunned. "You've been here before? And you ordered all my favorites. It was a perfect match." He shot me a look. "If someone recited a menu to you all night, you'd remember it too." "Huh?" Iris tapped his left shoulder, jogging my memory. My face instantly turned beet red. That one night at the Sterling mansion, I was supposed to be watching a movie with him but ended up falling asleep first. Apparently, I had dreamed about food and drooled all over his shoulder. So embarrassing. I changed the subject. "Thanks for everything before. Your boss, Frank, helped me out in the past. I was planning on partnering with him anyway. It's just business. Before we could cooperate, we had to get rid of the parasite. I couldn't trust a project to a company that employs people like that. But there were so many people lining up with proposals, begging to work with Phoenix Group. From a time and cost perspective, Iris didn't need to get involved in this mess at all. I saw through it but didn't say anything. Anyway, this meal is on me. Don't argue." "Iris, okay." This place sold dim sum during the day and stir-fry at night. The prices hadn't gone up much in over a decade. When my parents were still alive, our family used to come here for breakfast all the time. The owner had practically watched me and my sister grow up. As usual, he came over to take our payment and, noticing the out-of-place Iris, smiled at me. Rachel finally brought her boyfriend over. "He's a handsome one, good taste." I waved my hands frantically. No, he's a friend of my boss." I rushed to explain, worried Iris would be annoyed at the assumption. He said nothing, his expression turning colder. See? He was definitely mad. Out of concern for my former employer, I couldn't help but ask. "Are you sleeping any better these days, Mr. Sterling?" He said flatly, "You don't need to worry about it." Oh. Why was he being so prickly? "Rachel, you're not my sleep aid anymore." "In what capacity are you asking me this question?" After that day, I never saw Iris again. Frank handled all the work-related matters, so it had nothing to do with me. Since Frank took over, the company's projects gradually got back on track, and I started to find joy in my work. I began to feel motivated at my job. Just when I thought everything was looking up, I got a call from my second aunt. "Your grandma's in the hospital." My sister got to the hospital first since her school was closer. When she saw me, the poor girl burst into tears. I comforted her for a moment, then went to talk to the doctor. My grandmother had fallen in the shower. My second aunt had been scrolling through videos in the living room and only discovered her when she went to the bathroom. My grandma had been lying in the bathtub, soaked in cold water, for nearly an hour. My second uncle's family looked down on my grandmother for coming from the countryside and would always pinch their noses, saying she smelled. My grandmother, who had been meticulous her whole life, was so humiliated that she had asked my aunt to help her bathe, despite her mobility issues. My aunt, complaining about an old person's smell, refused to help. So my grandmother tried to bathe herself, lost her footing, and slipped. I walked out of the consultation room in a daze, the doctor's words echoing in my head. A few more minutes, and the old lady probably would have been gone. My second and third aunts were still arguing in the hallway about who's staying the night and who's paying for the caregiver. I tried to remain calm and asked my second aunt. The money I've been giving you every month should have some left over, right? Use it to hire a 24-hour caregiver. Money. My second aunt looked at my uncle. There's not enough. When we sold the house, the money was split 3 ways. My uncles had always coveted my sisters and my share, so they came up with an excuse. They said that all 3 brothers had a duty to support their mother, and since my dad was gone, that duty fell to me. Just turned 18 and have no money? Then hand over your share from the house. Their scheme was perfectly calculated. If I wasn't worried about my grandmother having to live with my second aunt, I wouldn't have given them a dime. But thinking about her living under their roof, I worried they would mistreat her, so I agreed to the monthly payments. And now, they were saying they didn't even have enough to hire a caregiver. Auntie, that new car downstairs, did Uncle just get it? Her expression tensed. It's none of your business what car we buy. Are you sure it has nothing to do with me? With that, I stormed down to the parking lot, found the license plate, and grabbed a nearby trash can. I aimed for the new car's windshield and smashed it with all my might. Rachel. Are you crazy? A group of relatives rushed over to stop me. Get Grandma a caregiver and a private room right now, or I'll smash your old car too. You're insane. Aren't you afraid of going to jail? I laughed coldly. I asked Wendy. She's not planning on getting a government job. Besides, if we check the records, it'll be obvious who bought the car and whose money was used. What crime is it to smash my own car? My aunt and uncle were furious but, fearing I'd follow through, scurried off to make the arrangements. I collapsed onto the ground. My sister, wiping away her tears, helped me up. My face stung. When they had swarmed me, someone's fingernails had scratched my face. I'll handle things here. You go back to school. When I got back to the inpatient ward, a nurse told me that my grandmother had already been moved to a VIP room with a team of top-tier caregivers working in shifts. I was stunned. My aunt was a notorious penny pincher. Why would she spring for an upgrade? It was then that I saw a familiar figure in the VIP area. Iris and Serena were coming out of the obstetrics and gynecology department. A beautiful young woman was with them. I instinctively ducked out of sight. The young woman had her arm linked with Serena's, saying the baby was healthy and that Iris was about to become a big brother. So, they were accompanying Serena to her checkup. A terrible thought shot through my brain. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Iris couldn't be with her. Seeing how close they were, the girl probably had no idea about Serena's feelings for Iris. Iris ignored her, but the girl didn't seem to mind, clinging to his arm coquettishly. Iris, should we get a gift for the baby ahead of time? Whatever. The young woman pulled Serena aside to talk. Once they were a little distance away, I walked over and said hello. Congratulations on becoming a big brother. How do you know it's my brother? Iris turned around and sneered. What else could it be? It's not like it's your son, right? Iris glanced down at me, his brow furrowed. He tilted my chin up. He stared at the scratch on my face and narrowed his eyes. You managed to hurt yourself while smashing a car. You saw all that? That's the kind of strength that almost broke my leg. All right. Thank you for what you did for my grandmother. Thank you for stepping in, and thank you for not letting me see you do it. If you really want to thank me, come back to work. I can't sleep, he said, rubbing his temples wearily. I only just noticed that Iris looked even worse than before. I don't think that's appropriate now. Now that he had a sweet girlfriend by his side, being his sleep aid would be crossing a line. Iris grabbed my elbow and explained in a low voice, Leah is not my girlfriend. But she's the ideal daughter-in-law for a wealthy family. I had recognized her immediately. She was Leah, the daughter of the Liu family, the same girl I had seen at the Orchid District. A perfect match for the Sterlings. That's not what I want, Iris said, refusing to let go. The status I asked for in the video call, can it be real? I don't know what you're talking about. I turned my head away. He looked at me intently, as if he wanted to say more but couldn't. When he saw Serena and Leah walking back, arm in arm, Iris let go of my hand. Forget it. Just forget it. Of course, I knew. He was asking me to be his girlfriend. Back when I said I wanted to go down with him, I never thought I'd be the one to fall. My heart races when I'm near him. I feel a pang of sadness when I see him with someone else. And knowing all the things he's done for me in secret touches me deeply. But a crush isn't everything. As the heir to the Sterling family, even getting a good night's sleep was a luxury he couldn't afford. Later, Serena contacted me privately. She had cleared out an entire coffee shop just for our meeting. She was 7 or 8 months pregnant and made me wait for half an hour before she finally spoke. I know you were still in the room that night of the trial. Iris never wears an eye mask at night. I know he's curious about you, interested in you. But so what? You and I are from different worlds. You're just a novelty to him. Even if he doesn't accept me, he can only marry a debutante from a prestigious family. I thought of that innocent young woman. Does she know about your disgusting obsession? She'll never know. They're getting engaged soon. Serena smiled smugly. Iris and I will always be family. Even after he's married, we'll be living under the same roof. There will be plenty of opportunities to sleep with him. I was so disgusted. I started dry heaving right there. At the end of the year, Frank took a few of us from the project team to the Phoenix Group's annual gala. Iris, as the company's representative, went on stage to give a speech. It had been a while. Under the spotlight, his face looked even thinner, with dark circles under his eyes. Has he still not been sleeping well? When it came to the most exciting part of the evening, the raffle, a representative from the Sterling Corporation, Iris's father Richard Sterling, appeared. Thank you all for your hard work this year. The Sterling Corporation is about to celebrate a joyous occasion. To share the joy, we're increasing the prize pool. Everyone gets a bonus. A joyous occasion? Frank looked at me, his expression a little awkward. That brat Iris is getting engaged to Leah. I said flatly. Then congratulations to him. I handed in my resignation to Frank. He insisted on trying to keep me, even offering to hold my position without pay until I finished my studies. My sister got an offer and a scholarship to a university in the UK. I'm planning to go back to school there. I might not come back. After my grandmother was discharged, I arranged for her to live in a nice nursing home. She had dedicated caregivers and other seniors to chat with. She spent the last 6 months of her life happily. I don't have any ties here anymore. What about him? Frank, who had witnessed my journey with Iris, couldn't help but sigh. I wish him happiness. The day I left, I received a text from an unknown number. Rachel, I'm begging you. Wait for me for 2 months. I can explain everything. Goodbye, Mr. Sterling. 2 months later, a massive story, or rather, a scandal, rocked Port City. The Sterling family welcomed a new son, and the whole city celebrated. There were fireworks over the harbor and city-wide congratulatory messages. The event was inescapable. The next day, the media exposed that the newborn was not a Sterling. A copy of a paternity test was sent to all major media outlets on a timer. It stated in black and white that Richard Sterling was not the biological father. So who was? On the other side of the ocean, I got the full story from Frank. The baby's father was someone I had met. It was the butler who had warned me on my first day. Richard Sterling claimed publicly that his wife and the butler were having an affair. In reality, Serena had been kept in the dark. The person she had spent the night with wasn't her husband, but the butler. Richard Sterling had a low sperm count. Iris's birth had been a miracle. He was obsessed with his public image and worried about anyone threatening his only biological son. So one night, he secretly drugged Serena and had the butler take his place. Now that the truth was out, the Sterling family refused to acknowledge the child. Serena was kicked out of the family and had a complete mental breakdown. I asked Frank if Iris's wait 2 months was so he could get a blood sample from the baby for the paternity test. That seemed incredibly cruel to the child. Frank explained that by the time Iris discovered the baby might not be his father's, Serena was already past 28 weeks pregnant. The only option was to let her give birth. Iris found a reliable family to adopt his non-biological brother and ensured he would be provided for life. Richard Sterling, under public pressure, resigned from all his positions at Sterling Corporation. Serena's family supposedly hounded him daily. The sole heir to the Sterling fortune officially took over the enterprise. The Sterling Corporation was absorbed into Phoenix, the company Iris had founded. And with that, Iris Sterling's business empire was complete. Frank came to visit me at my university a few times. From his words, it was clear that Iris was asking about me. There were too many missed opportunities and misunderstandings between us. Even if we cleared them all up, the gap would still be there. Besides, he had gotten what he wanted. And so had I. I was in the UK, pursuing a degree in psychology. Because of my unique experience as a sleep aid, I developed a keen interest in the study of insomnia and dreams. My advisor, a psychologist specializing in insomnia, had a new patient from Port City who was a perfect fit for my research topic. He asked me to do a preliminary consultation. He sent the file to my email. Inside were the patient's medical records. Chronic insomnia, accompanied by severe tinnitus. Has experienced hallucinations and engaged in self-harming behavior. At the end of the email, I saw a familiar name, E. Sterling. When I saw Iris again, he was lying quietly on the chaise lounge in the consultation room, still as a piece of driftwood. As if sensing my gaze, he turned to look at me. His pupils, bathed in the sunlight, were as clear as amber. I had a new hairstyle and color and was wearing a mask. Iris didn't recognize me. He stood up, shook my hand politely, and asked about my advisor. He was much thinner, his tall frame now looking even more elongated. His jawline was sharp, his eye sockets deep, and the skin beneath his eyes was dark, as if he hadn't slept properly in a very long time. After a brief consultation, I suggested he rest for a bit. He fell asleep quickly. The sunlight fell on him like a thin veil. Then I heard a pained groan. I won't go. It's all my fault. Don't leave me. Then, he started scratching deep, bloody lines into his arms and the backs of his hands. Trapped in a nightmare, he felt no pain. Iris. Wake up. I patted his face, but he showed no signs of waking. He used to need help falling asleep, now he needed help waking up. I pulled down my mask and leaned over to kiss his forehead. Our eyes met. A look of disbelieving wonder flashed in his eyes. The next second, he pulled me into a fierce embrace. The force was so strong it felt like he was trying to merge me into his body. Rachel, am I dreaming? I ended up learning even more secrets of the Port City elite. Serena had been a scholarship student sponsored by Iris's mother. She later got into Port City University. Seeing the young woman struggling financially, Iris's mother hired her as a tutor for her son, paying her double the market rate. Iris was annoyed. He was already a great student and didn't need tutoring. But his mother was kind-hearted and didn't want to hurt Serena's pride, so she made up an excuse. But Serena fell for the newly adult Iris. This annoyed Iris even more, so he avoided her. As a proud teenager, he couldn't bring himself to tell his mother, so he just kept making excuses to skip his tutoring sessions. More often than not, Serena would come to the Sterling house and find Iris wasn't there. But his father, Richard, noticed her. Later, after Iris graduated from college, he took his mother on a road trip. Richard had something come up last minute and didn't go. The driver, Mr. Lee, had served the family for many years, and Iris respected him. The accident happened on the way back. The car veered into a guardrail on a mountain road, and half of it went flying off the cliff. The driver died instantly, and Iris's mother fell down the mountainside. Only Iris survived, and he was bedridden for half a year. Richard immediately married a new wife, Serena, the woman Iris had once called Miss Sue. All these years, his own father had been having an affair with his tutor. His mother died, and Serena quickly took her place. Iris suspected the car crash was no accident and had been secretly investigating all this time. He hadn't found the truth about the crash, but he did uncover the affair between Serena and the butler. Just when everyone thought the dust had settled, Iris couldn't accept it. It wasn't them. Iris's eyes were vacant, like someone who had climbed a mountain for ages, only to be kicked off the cliff just as he reached the summit. "It was me," he said, painfully grabbing his hair. "It was supposed to be my turn to drive, but I took some cold medicine and fell asleep. If I hadn't, Mr. Lee wouldn't have been driving while exhausted. I killed them." The brutal truth shattered the foundation of Iris's world. "I couldn't accept that outcome, so I kept desperately searching for proof that Serena and the others killed my mom. But the person who should have died was me." His subconscious was punishing him. Don't sleep. If you sleep, you kill people. He was like a desperate, trapped animal, stuck in a looping nightmare of that day. Gradually, he developed the strange illness of being unable to sleep after dark. "I hate my dad, I hate Serena, and I hate myself even more." A hot tear trickled down my neck and soaked into my collar. The pain in his voice made my own heart ache. Iris held me tighter. "I'm sorry. I thought if I could just find evidence that they killed my mom, everything would be over. I never imagined that after all this time, the real culprit was me," he said with a self-mocking laugh. "And Leah? Didn't she stay by your side?" I didn't ask the rest of the question. "Leah is my mom's best friend's daughter. She was just covering for me, to keep Serena from harassing and suspecting me. That night at the Orchid District, shutting off the power and beating those guys up in the dark, that was her idea. So when they were whispering, they weren't laughing at my predicament. There really had been so many misunderstandings between us." Seeing him again, I had to admit, my heart still skipped a beat. Iris's vulnerability, his stubbornness, his awkwardness, his shyness, they were like a vine that had completely entangled me. I cherished everything about him, good and bad. His tears made my heart ache and flutter at the same time. I wanted to wipe them away, but I also wanted to be the one to make him cry. I didn't want to live with any more regrets, so I asked him to stay. The first time he visited my home in the UK, he looked around curiously. I wrapped my arms around him from behind, burying my face in his back. "Iris, now it's your turn to put me to sleep." Then I grabbed his tie, pushed him onto the sofa, and loomed over him. His gaze followed the tie slowly upward, a dark fire igniting in his eyes. "How?" His hot breath ghosted over my palm. His eyes were shimmering, and even his breathing was an undisguised plea. Drunk on his beauty, I leaned down and kissed his lips. "You learned how I did it. Now it's your turn." "Okay," he replied, readily agreeing. The first night, Iris held me in his arms and read Peppa Pig in a perfect Oxford accent. His voice was as gentle as water, and I fell asleep quickly. The second night, the young master himself cooked a calming dessert soup, but it wasn't sweet at all. "Did you forget the sugar?" The words were barely out of my mouth before he kissed me, a piece of candy expertly pushed into my mouth by his tongue. His rough thumb caressed my lips. "The sugar is right here." I swear, I never taught him that. The third night, Iris prepared incense and a milk bath, but he left me alone in the tub. Are you sure you're just going to watch? My shirt was already soaked. He knelt by the tub, pushing my restless hands back into the water. I'm a professional. Fine. We're playing it that way. The fourth night, he picked a horror movie and turned off all the lights. I was getting into it, but the grip on my arm grew tighter and tighter. Iris's face was pale, his expression tense. I decided to tease him, whispering in his ear, "Are you feeling sleepy yet?" He buried his head in my neck. "Don't you dare fall asleep. Stay with me until it's over." Ha! Professional? The fifth night, I changed into a form-fitting yoga outfit, eagerly anticipating a steamy hot yoga session with the young master. He stared at my clothes, then, blushing, asked me to change. What's wrong? You don't like it? I stood on my toes to tease him, but then I heard an unfamiliar cough and realized there was a third person in the room. I hired a professional yoga instructor, he said, covering his bright red face. Someone just knock me out now. The sixth night, I obediently lay down, eagerly awaiting the young master's massage service. The essential oil felt cold on my skin, making me shiver. Soon, a warm palm settled on my lower back, kneading gently. The faint scent of mint surrounded me, and the pressure on my back varied, so comfortable I was about to fall asleep. Suddenly, the pressure intensified, a deep ache spreading through my back, and a soft sigh escaped my lips. Realizing how suggestive it sounded, I quickly bit my lip and looked back in embarrassment. A warm towel was placed over my eyes. You rest. I'm going to take a shower. What? A shower again? Dude, when I massaged you, you thought I was dirty. Now you're massaging me, and you think I'm dirty? I was a little annoyed, so I got up and went to the bathroom to confront him. But from inside, I heard a suppressed gasp. So, that's what he meant by his mind being dirty. On the seventh night, Iris came in with a bottle of white wine. I asked why it wasn't a dry red. He glared at me. I guess he was traumatized by red wine now. I walked over, barefoot, and he immediately put down the wine and scooped me up. The floor is cold. I stood on his feet, wrapped my arms around his neck, and whispered with a laugh, "Then let's do something to warm up." That night, I finally understood the true purpose of the eye mask. Tears soaked the silk fabric as I begged him with a hoarse voice. "Iris, I'm tired. I'm really tired." He gently held my ankle, his lips kissing the swollen, red skin. "Good girl. Turn over." The next day, I slept until noon, my body aching all over. He wasn't putting me to sleep, he was just sleeping with me. Sunlight fell on his satisfied, sleeping face. The more I looked, the angrier I got. I raised my hand to slap him awake. But then I noticed a simple silver band on my ring finger. "Hey, what's this?" The young master slowly opened his eyes, his long lashes casting a shadow. He took my hand and kissed it. "Good morning, wife." Epilogue. I've lied to Rachel. More than once. For instance, I'm not afraid of horror movies. I just love the way she teases me. And my insomnia is gone, as long as I'm by her side. There are some things I haven't told Rachel, because they are too cruel. The year of the car crash, when the car went off the road, half of it was dangling over the edge. My mother was thrown from the vehicle. She was afraid the car would fall with me inside, so she let go of my hand right in front of me. Ever since then, whenever I closed my eyes, would see her letting go. I couldn't sleep. Until I held the person I love. The first time we slept together, I dreamed of my mother for the first time. She scolded me for taking so long to visit her in her dreams. She said she missed me and asked if I was doing well. I told her I had found the girl I would spend my life with. And that she was wonderful. When I woke up, I saw Rachel looking at me nervously. "You were crying?" I touched my face. It was damp. She buried her face in my chest and asked in a muffled voice, "Was it because I was too rough on you last night?" I leaned down and kissed the top of her head, then rubbed her aching lower back and said pitifully, So you have to comfort me. Please allow me to keep the reason for my tears to myself for now, just to enjoy this moment of her comforting me." I suddenly remembered a line from one of my mother's favorite books. "Waking up, I feel how much I love you."